Hey everybody, so I thought I'd give a bit of a Battletech update. So basically I've chosen a faction for Battletech. Now there's a lot of opportunity to paint models the way you want to in Battletech. Like you can choose and make up your own sort of mercenary band, and you know you can do like sort of the inner sphere, which has its own set of rules, as well as the clans. I was gonna do an inner sphere first, for sure, is what I was planning on doing. And when choosing a faction, I've done this a number of times now with different war games. You know, starting with Warhammer 40K. You know, it's important to consider a couple of things, or a number of things, when choosing a faction. I mean, you need to choose, you know, something that you like the look of, like a paint scheme that you can tolerate and that you want to look at on the table. You also may be interested in the background and want to represent something that you can build upon and enjoy the kind of background and information that they have on the faction. And then there may even be, in some cases, rules that are different, even with the faction that you choose. Even if the models are the same, there may be rules. Now, I thought about it at first as to what I should choose, and I kind of looked into it. You can really use like the same rules across Inner Sphere, as far as I understand. You know, for the mechs, you know, it's not like there would be some differences between clan and Inner Sphere in this game, but I'm not being hindered too much rule-wise by choosing a faction, and as far as I can tell. But so I primarily chose it based on the look as well as the background info. Now, what I ended up choosing, now these guys aren't finished painting yet. I've just sprayed an undercoat and then one top coat of a little bit lighter of brown to get it started towards the faction color. I've chosen a faction called the Ceti Lancers, or the Ceti Rangers, depending on the timeline. They're part of a faction called the Capellan Confederation, and I think I got that right, the Capellan. Now, I'm not an expert on it. I just sort of glanced at the background and looked through some of the highlights. But basically, the Capellan Confederation, this is a game that's based on, you know, the future in our humanity. And so the Inner Sphere is essentially like an area of space around the original worlds that were in galaxies that were sort of inhabited by mankind in this fictional universe. The Capellan Confederation are sort of the, I guess, the progeny, politically speaking, and perhaps even geographically, of like the Chinese and the Soviets on Earth. And so they are sort of like communists, basically. That's where they're coming out of, is that sort of area of geography. And they're in the world of Battletech. They inhabit an area of space that's the least in size in the Inner Sphere, and they've even lost some, like, over time. They're not by any means like the richest, and they're definitely kind of like an underdog in a lot of ways. But I actually kind of thought the idea of having a bit of a theme of like post-Soviet or Russia and Chinese kind of descendants, and that kind of theme would be kind of neat. And what I ended up choosing, they have lots of different color schemes, you know, even in the same factions in some cases. It was not just one, but it seems like the dominant color in the Capellan Confederation is usually like a variation on green. I believe it's a bit more of an army green, U.S. Army kind of green, or a duller green, like not a very jade or bright green or vibrant, as far as I can tell. I actually was looking at the Ceti Rangers and Lancers, no relation to the Tau of 40K, because they have like a lot of background written up for them, which is interesting to read, but they also have like a really interesting color scheme. So I'll throw up a couple of photos just to show the Ceti Rangers, just things I saw on the internet. As you can see, brown is like a dominant color, but then they use gold for other bits to have as a complementary color. So it's brown and gold. I thought it was kind of cool. It almost looks kind of regal to me, but in a different kind of way. Almost in a sort of alien world way, because I usually think of regal as like gold and purple and things like that. But I thought that was kind of neat. And so that's what I'm going to be trying to do. Painting project plans. Well, I'll just mention these are the only ones that I've started with that I kind of thought I'd just do. I have other painting projects I want to do, and I didn't want to paint all my Battletech up at once. I just wanted to get a selection of mechs that I could potentially put a couple of different lances, smaller lances together. I did actually do both of my Marauders. I thought it might be nice just to do them both at the same time. But yeah, I grabbed a mixture of lighter and medium mechs, or assault mechs and heavy mechs. I don't know if I have a medium mech here. The Clint, I think that's the Clint. I'm not sure. I think so. If I want to remember, I think that might be a medium, but I definitely have this one. This Hermes is a lighter one, as far as I remember. I could be wrong. I sometimes get the medium and the lights mixed up because I'm still learning them, but I know that the Awesome is an assault. Then the Grasshopper, I believe, is either a heavy or an assault, and these are definitely heavies, the Marauders. So I have one that's like a bigger sort of model that is fairly maneuverable. I got my Marauders, which are heavies, the Awesome, which deals out a lot of firepower, and then some lighter ones that I can kind of mix in comparison to them at least. I think that's the Commando for sure, and then the Hermes, and I think the Clint. These guys could potentially fill out some different roles in my initial lists, just to kind of get used to the game with some different rules and such. And so yeah, my plan for painting is what I've done so far, which is I've taken a darker brown, undercoated it after priming black. Then now I'm actually using a lighter brown on top of it. All of that was done with my airbrush initially, but now I'm going to go in with a brush and I'm going to actually put in the gold, which is going to take probably the longest to do. And then I'm thinking that I'm going to try a really, really dark brown or black oil wash. Maybe even black. Now that I'm thinking about it, I was thinking dark brown, because I have a couple of different oils that I tend to use for oil washes. For brown, well, for black I just use, just your regular, what do they call it? It's just your ivory black. It's just for actual oil paint. For brown, I usually use burnt umber. But honestly, it's going to be not that far off from what I've got here, because I undercoated it with a model color burnt umber. So I don't think that's going to help. I'm thinking maybe the black oil wash over the gold once I finish the gold. And for those of you that have done oil washes before, you'd know that when using the spirits afterwards, I can get all of that off the gold except for the recesses. So I'm not worried about that. That's one of the strengths of it. And so that's kind of, and then I'm thinking red for the visors and things, because I saw, as like I showed in the pictures, that looks really nice. I think the red with the brown and the gold. So I don't know, what do you guys think? And for those of you that are into Battletech, that know presumably a lot more than me, because I'm just getting into it, yeah, share any thoughts that you have on either the choice of faction or the rules, and for the different models that I've chosen just to start with. If you're interested, on list building or whatever, I'm interested in what you guys think. Hellcorrex has already, I already told him in some comments on other videos that I was looking at this faction, and he had mentioned it. I think that this faction I have is potentially a rival of some of the ones, because he does more than one faction in Battletech, and I think these guys are rivals to some of the ones that he does, typically, some of his factions that he's painted up. So he was quite familiar with this faction, and I think it's because it has been around and there's enough written up on it as a Capellan faction, so Capellan Confederation. So yeah, like one of the biggest house is House Lao, I believe, in the Capellan Confederation, but I'm still kind of learning how like House Lao relates to the Capellan Confederation within that, because I think he was like a leader, and that's why he's the royal house and was, you know, like the leading family, and so they call it House Lao. But then you still have like units, like in this case, they're like basically, I view them as battalions, like the Ceti Rangers. Now, what I don't know enough yet is whether the Lao consists of this, like this one's within it, or whether this is just within the Ceti Rangers, the greater Capellan Confederation, the entire sort of society. So, not sure. Well, I think that's enough, because I clearly have ran out of stuff that I know what I'm talking about. But that's the plan, and so should be interesting. And yeah, I'm going to paint these guys up, and then shortly after that I'll have other stuff that I'll be painting as well. So, take care.